And good afternoon. Thank you and good morning, and maybe good afternoon by the time we finish this. We're going to talk about my story in 2016. Cottonwood Springs was a hospital that we talked about before, but as a mental health hospital that has mental health facilities, was brand new in 2015. I went there in 2016 for inpatient. When I was there, I mixed up names to start out. I had heard of a guy named Colin through friends, and Colin was a guy of a name that I knew. Although he was not the guy who I thought he was at the time, I remember thinking, "That's him. That's him. That's him. That's who it is." I mixed up a bunch of their names. The other thing, I thought the air conditioner's number meant something at 78.3. It, of course, did not mean anything. I remember being so crazy and my mind going so many directions that they had to give me a shot because my mind was going so crazy and I was so wacko. And I remember hearing noises at the time, right before getting my shot, and wondering what is going on. Maybe the voices were real, maybe they weren't. They probably were somewhat of them yelling at people, of getting frustrated with people. I can remember very few things about the hospital stay in 2016. I realized that when I went back to the hospital in 2022, that most of those memories were false. Most of those memories were not there. Very few things I remembered. I remember talking to the nurse and my doctor at one point a couple times, but that's all I remember. The more the thoughts came was the more that I was in there. I would not return to Cottonwood in 2019 until 2021. I went home for a few days after Cottonwood Springs, but that is a very vague memory. Then I went to Menninger's. It was supposed to be the greatest hospital. Well, it was not. It was the most expensive hospital well known in the Houston area. It is in the top 10 of hospitals, but it was not good for me. It's very hyped up. I remember talking to my dad, crying at Menninger's in the middle of in the little hut of the area of the yard. I remember playing basketball a few times with other people and one time by myself, eating a few meals by myself, eating a few meals with people and talking about how good the food was. The food was good. I also remember having a terrible birthday, watching the game at my birthday, crying, watching college football in the room, but had just a terrible time. Getting yelled at for going fast on the treadmill when I go fast on the treadmill all the time. I think some people are nicer than me. For example, the custodio and the nursing staff, they were very nice to me. I remember, like to mention before, they did a meditation that I really liked. That was nice of the nurse. The nurses and the custodian were very nice. Some of the other nurses were not so much nice. When committing suicide, I was on suicide watch. They put two people right in my face. The night I could not move. The space made me want to commit suicide more almost. After the 3 weeks of a horrible time, I then went home to Menninger's. My dad had to help me get out of the hospital, and he said it was very hard work. I remember then going to Mexico and having a good time, but as I can't remember much of the time. I remember a time swimming. I remember a time having a meal with my mom and dad and a couple of our friends. But that's about it. I definitely have more memories now than I did. I also remember when we went home, we went to the Time Warner cable store a bunch. We had almost cable problems. I also remember seeing Mom on. After that, I couldn't swallow it one night, and so my dad decided to take me to Shawnee Mission Hospital. I remember that because it was so scary. The mental health part of it at Advent, I don't really remember. I do remember, though, having a doctor and telling me it's like a roller coaster. You're going up and down on the roller coaster, and your life is like a roller coaster. I thought he explained that perfectly and made sense of that. Going down in the shower and getting staples. Definitely more memories at Shawnee Mission than at Cottonwood, which tells me I was better at Shawnee Mission. Seeing my parents, remember seeing my parents, they suggested I was better, that I was able to remember more things, as I said. I think that the time me and Dr. Lippman found the best medication for me to be on at the given time. In Vega, although don't quote me on that, I don't really know if that was the medicine, but I did finally get back on that in 2016, 2017. That concluded 2016. I went out to outpatient. At the time, on my mind was a priest that abused me for words, not touching or anything like that, but did have a civil charge later on. Sexually touched somebody. I had a good experience with the mental health at Shawnee Mission. I continued to have the same doctor for a while. I also then later went to Cottonwood later on in 2018, but we're going to stay in 2017. And 2017 is where we begin. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam's Sports Report and Sam's Mental Health Day.
Today's video is on schizoaffective disorder and differentiating the element or elements mental health clinicians use to separate schizoaffective disorder from schizophrenia. My name is Joseph. I'm a psychiatrist working in Australia. We will also touch on some of the symptoms and signs people with schizoaffective disorder experience in this video. Schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder at times can be a challenge to tease apart. Sometimes you need a good long-term history to tell the two apart. When you review the American Psychiatric Association's diagnostic criteria, which is widely used across the world, you can compare the diagnostic criteria for schizophrenia versus schizoaffective disorder. And what you will notice is that schizoaffective disorder needs both a psychotic component and other mood components, whilst for the diagnosis of schizophrenia, there does not need to be any mood disorder. If you were going to take one thing away from this video to help differentiate between schizophrenia versus schizoaffective disorder involves a mood disorder, and it is self-evident in the name of the condition. Schizoaffective, affective being another term for mood. For a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder to be made, there needs to be an overlap of mood symptoms and psychotic symptoms. They need to be occurring at the same time as well. One of the two types of schizoaffective disorders may be noted in the diagnosis. The first type is that of the bipolar type, in which the mood disturbance could be a manic episode, hypomanic, or mixed episode. The second type of schizoaffective disorder is the depressive type, in which the mood disturbance is that of major depressive episode. Other signs and symptoms of schizoaffective disorder include delusions, which are fixed false beliefs, hallucinations, incoherent speech, bizarre behavior, symptoms of depression or symptoms of a manic or hypomanic episode, along with impaired functioning, whether at a social or at an occupational level. By impaired functioning, we mean not being able to cope at home or at work. So there you have it, a short video about schizoaffective disorder. Thank you for watching. We put out mental health videos on YouTube and Facebook every Sunday.